it's now my privilege to introduce to you Michael Matt, one of the great fighters for tradition in America. I think many know him from his TV show right now on YouTube, which is very famous, also from the newspaper. But he's one of the members of the oldest family in America defending tradition, running the oldest Catholic newspaper in the country. And he has a legacy of tradition that's unequaled in America. Please welcome the great defender of the traditional faith from America, Michael Matt.
Thank you so much, Sean Henry. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the press, for being here. I want to make just two points that I'm going to be speaking about just briefly, but that I want you to have as the takeaway for me. Number one, what happened here this week is just the beginning. It is certainly not over. It's just the beginning. And number two, the treatment of homosexuality and the potential for the discussion about blessing gay unions has everything to do with undermining marriage, and most importantly for everyone in our audience or seeing these videos or hearing us today, it has to do with your children. Heterosexually, normal people are going to be under massive moral assault if at the highest levels of the Catholic Church they're seriously discussing blessing one of the sins that cries to heaven for vengeance. Those are the 2 points. Over and above that, in his October, I want to appeal to authority, so it can't be said that we are just here opinionating. In his October 24th interview with Edward Penton of the National Catholic Register, Gerhard Cardinal Muller noted that at the Synod on Synodality, quote, all is being turned around so that now we must be open to homosexuality and the ordination of women. If you analyze it, all is about converting us to these two themes. Now, His Eminence is using, in my opinion, the word converting with purpose and forethought, because that has to do with what's going to happen to the church over the next 12 months. Converting, moving us to a different position, the Catholic world. This first stage of the Synod is all about converting the Catholic world to new moral realities, heretofore never seen in the history of the church, in the history of Christianity. I intentionally am wearing, this is especially for people back home, I'm intentionally wearing this press pass so that I can attest to something that's extremely important, because we're seeing a lot of people on YouTube this morning who are crowing that nothing happened that was all that serious at this Synod. I recognize some of you, members of the press, who were in the Vatican Press Hall over the past 10 days, past week, and you know very well what's happening here. Many people asked questions, many journalists asked questions. Why have we not discussed married clergy? Why have we not discussed blessing gay unions at the small breakout meetings? The answer from the official representatives of this Synod was always the same. We are here at this Synod to discuss synodality. The topic of this year's Synod is synodality. They insisted on it. Father James Martin just today stood on the rooftop of the Jesuit building and said it again to the world on YouTube, that this was all about synodality, not the specifics, because Cardinal Muller is quite right, in my opinion. It's a conversion process between now and next year. The 2024 Synod on Synodality is where these specifics will be answered. So those people who are on YouTube saying nothing happened, I'm sorry, friends. They have no idea from the United States or from anywhere else what's actually going on here. If they're just looking at that final document, the 40-page document, they have no idea what the agenda is. Ladies and gentlemen of the press who've been in that press hall this week, you know very well what this agenda is, and we all have an obligation to put the world and the church on notice of what that agenda truly is. It's all about October 2024. The plan is to use the synodal process to convert the world to these new realities. Why? Because overcoming 2,000 years of Bible-based Catholic moral theology is going to take time. Remember, friends, this is all about two words, equity and inclusion. This is all about the Great Reset. The Catholic Church is being accused in her traditional manifestation, her traditional teaching, of being what they called religious supremacism, guilty of religious supremacism. So if the Catholic Church holds position on the ordination of women, for example, on feminism, for example, that is at odds with the mainstream position, or if the Catholic Church has a position on homosexuality that is at odds with the mainstream globalist agenda, the Catholic Church must change. So everything that we're seeing here is about an agreement of the church at the highest levels to comply with this idea of equity and inclusion. To not allow women to be ordained is exclusion, not inclusion. And so these things are going to have to change. But the question on homosexuality, the church is very clear, and this is what has to change. The Catechism of the Catholic Church, Catechism of the Catholic Church, number 2357, says that homosexual acts are intrinsically disordered, they are contrary to the natural law, and under no circumstances can they be approved. We know this, but it's important to reassert this because this is the change, the teaching that has to change if the synodal process is going to happen, if we are to become a synodal church. How can the church offer God's blessings on gay unions or unrepentant gay persons without blasphemously asking God to bless intrinsically disordered and mortally sinful acts? It is impossible. The discussion itself at this synod, therefore, is a scandal according to how scandal is defined by the Catechism of the Catholic Church. Blessing gay unions is not mentioned, as I said, in the final document of the synod, but this topic is certainly on the synodal docket, if you will. In his October 2nd answer to the dubia raised by Cardinal Burke and the other cardinals on the question of blessing so-called gay unions, Pope Francis himself notes that the Catholic Church, he says, in pursuit of pastoral prudence, should discern if there are ways of giving blessings to homosexual persons that do not alter the Church's teaching on marriage. This is a red herring. This has nothing to do with marriage, and I think Pope Francis knows that it has nothing to do with marriage. This concerns the synodal discussion itself. The discussion, and our children are hearing this discussion, that even in Rome, at the highest levels of the Catholic Church, there is a discussion going on about blessing those who are engaged in sexual intercourse outside of marriage, which, since the Catholic Church rejects homosexual same-sex marriage, is an impossibility. Whatever we are blessing here is going to take place, the acts are going to take place outside of the marital union, obviously. So how can pastors now, or 1 year from now, bless those whose lifestyles includes extramarital acts that can under no circumstances be approved by the church? It cannot, and so the church teaching must change if we are to have a synodal church. Furthermore, how could such blessings, this is important, I'll close on this, how could such blessings not be regarded by our children, by the children of the world, heterosexual, normal children, young people, how could it not be regarded as the Catholic Church closing a blind eye to fornication in general? If homosexual unions can be blessed, then simple logic dictates that heterosexual unions with acts that are being committed outside of marriage can be blessed as well. And that's the message that the world, the young people of the world, are going to receive by all this talk about blessing gay unions. Any synodal talk of blessing gay unions signals, in other words, a sea change, that the Catholic Church no longer takes seriously her own moral teachings prohibiting cohabitation, sex outside of marriage, and fornication. There is no other takeaway. So friends, brace yourselves for the synodal proselytism that will take place, and as Cardinal Muller rightly warns, it will be to convert all of us by the Synod of Synodality on 2024 to some issues that would have shocked, horrified, and scandalized every pope, every saint in the history of the church. Thank you very much.
So we've heard now from Uganda, from America, from France, from the UK, from Kenya, from clergy abuse victims in their eloquent spokeswoman. I would like to bring you a message from Canada, from LifeSite News. As Michael said, in the Synod document, and many of the people pontificating on what's going on in America are saying, oh, see, the Synod wasn't that bad, it wasn't that bad. Well, let me tell you, actually, Pope Francis held a Synod of his own. He did an Uber Synod. And in his Uber Synod, it's been going on since the Synod was announced. You notice from America, the American bishops selected 5 rather conservative bishops to be their representatives at the Synod. But what did Pope Francis do? Well, he selected different picks of his own from America. He selected Cardinal Supich, Cardinal Gregory, Cardinal McElroy, Cardinal Tobin, all of whom, by the way, he named as cardinals knowing of their promotion of the LGBT agenda. Maybe despite it? No, but probably because of it. And in case you wondered, oh, maybe they're the cardinals anyway, that's why they were promoted, just to make sure that everyone knew exactly his own agenda, he also appointed the #1 promoter of homosexuality in the church in America, Father James Martin, Jesuit, leaving no doubt whatsoever as to his own agenda. And not only that, during the time of the Synod, the Pope continued to have his own Uber Synod by meeting first with Whoopi Goldberg. Whoopi Goldberg's meeting with the Holy Father we learned about through Vatican television, which aired her wonderful praise for the Pope's support of the LGBT agenda. And you learned of it through Vatican News itself. But it wasn't only Whoopi Goldberg, it was also Sister Janine Gremick. Yes, the same Sister Janine Gremick who was sanctioned under John Paul II and Benedict for her heretical work with LGBT, promotion of the sin of sodomy that leads people to hell. Everybody thinks, oh, we're being inclusive and loving. No, we're not. The scriptures tell us exactly what we're being. When we allow for these behaviors which damn people to hell, we're being hateful. That's true hate. The parent who allows their child to enter into an activity that's going to cause them harm, grave harm, is not doing the child a favor. If you have a child, and I've had many, I've had 8 children, and many of them boys, 6 of them boys, and you all know boys like to do dangerous things. If I wanted to be an inclusive or parent that allows for inclusive activity, but my boys love to play at the side of the cliff, would I be loving and allowing them to do that? No. Everyone would know, even if I had to drag them away and they would kick and scream and say, Daddy, Daddy, we want to play there, leave it. Because I love you, I must take you away from the edge because I know that's dangerous. You could fall and you could die. That's the problem with our so-called loving attitude toward accepting and blessing of the very activity that will lead to their eternal damnation. That's not love. It's not love to tell someone, oh yes, it's fine the way you are. That's the way God created you. Continue in it. Come anyway to Holy Communion. I was stunned because the very man that Pope Francis named to be Cardinal Blaise Supich, I was with him here in the Sala Stampa, in the press office, the Holy See, when Cardinal practiced celibacy, who were engaged sexually with one another, even though they did not have an annulment. And he said, the minister of Holy Communion must give them Holy Communion. So I asked him, because I was at this conference, I asked him, well, what about a gay couple? If they feel in conscience that they should receive Holy Communion, should they then receive Holy Communion too? He responded, gays are people too. So the minister of Holy Communion must give them communion. But what did the scriptures say about giving Holy Communion to those who are undisposed, to those who are living a life that is incongruous with the gospel? St. Paul teaches very clearly in Corinthians, they eat and drink condemnation to themselves. So it is no love for them. It is no kindness to them. It is harm to them. He did not only meet with Whoopi Goldberg and Janine Gremick, he also met with the global network of Rainbow Catholics, the leaders of all these various LGBT pushing groups in the Catholic Church around the world. Oh yes, the Pope held his own Uber Synod, in which he pronounced on homosexuality. Because right at the outset of the Synod, he answered the question of the dubia, the new dubia of the five cardinals, which they set out because of the grave confusion in the church, started by Francis, carried on by the bishops, first in Belgium. And we learned from Cardinal de Kessel in Belgium that while they were doing their same-sex blessings, Pope Francis is fine with it. And then we learned in the vote in Germany where the German Synod voted. I remember prelates telling me before, oh, the numbers of those prelates in favor of the LGBT agenda are very great, even more than 50%. And I would think to myself, no, it can't be that high. And then came the clarifying vote in Germany. It was 38 bishops in favor of blessing same-sex unions, 8 opposed, 11 abstentions. With those numbers, I was wrong. It wasn't only 50%. It was much, much more. So the crisis in the church on this issue is grave. And in the midst of that crisis came the questions of the dubia cardinals, sent in the summer, but not published till now. Sent in the summer and hoping for clarification from Pope Francis on this question of blessing of same-sex unions. And he gave an answer. The cardinals, God bless them, didn't publish the answer because who would want to publish heresy? And yet that's one of the ancient methods of understanding church teaching, where the prelates of the church ask the Holy Father, what's going on here? And then you get an answer. When they submitted to the public that they had asked the questions and didn't get clear answers from the Pope, what happened? Cardinal Fernandez, the new head of the CDF, or the DDF now, of the Doctrine of Faith. By the way, there's another scandal in the same direction. He too believes in the erroneous fallacy of promoting the LGBT agenda, and he's made the head of the Doctrine of Faith. The same position that Cardinal Ratzinger himself held. And as Sandro Magister noted, Pope Francis waited. He waited to give that post to him. He wouldn't dare do it while Benedict was still alive. And here, the Vatican itself publishes the Pope's responses to the dubia, and in them we find what? We find the ultimate confusion. The statement that Bishop Schneider characterized as the art of confusion. A statement which opened the door officially from the Pope to this blessing, not of marriage, but of homosexual person or persons. So what's happening around the world? If we go to Belgium, what's happening? If we go to Germany, what's happening? A homosexual couple is coming to the church and asking for a blessing. And their friends are coming, and the priest comes out in his vestments. Not a marriage, no, but a blessing of homosexual union. And they come there with their friends, and their friends fill the aisles. And they come there in their 2 tuxedos. And the priest gives them a blessing. After which they process out with music, of course. And then they go and have their celebration. But it's not a marriage. It's the blessing of a civil union only. And it's going on in your Catholic churches. And there is mass confusion. How can we say that this is not a new church? How can we say that this is the Church of Jesus Christ? This is the formation of a false church, and we're watching it before our very eyes. Oh, and by the way, we do not hate Pope Francis. No. We love him. At LifeSite, we have been praying for Pope Francis every day for years. After Bishop Schneider prayed openly for the conversion of Pope Francis, we started to pray for the conversion of Pope Francis. We do so openly, because indeed he needs a conversion. Because remember in Matthew 18:6, our Lord makes a warning to the apostles and the teachers of the faith. And he says, it would be better for you to have a millstone tied about your neck and to be cast into the sea rather than you scandalize the little ones. And I can tell you from my own experience, as a father of 8 children, children who have themselves been confused and scandalized by Pope Francis, that he is indeed confusing the little ones. St. Paul in Galatians says, even if I, speaking as the apostles of the Gentiles, even if I, or an angel from heaven, were to come and give you a different gospel, let him be condemned, let him be anathema. And that is indeed what we are having now. Through this last 10, almost 11 years of the pontificate of Francis, we have had presented to us a different gospel, which from the pages of Holy Writ, of Holy Scripture, is condemned. So please join us in praying the conversion of Pope Francis, whom we love and whom we wish to avoid the punishments laid out for those who confuse the little ones.